Hey everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for attending today's Inside ProsperWorks webinar, 3 Ways to Coach Your Sales Reps with Data. My name is Gabrielle Hughes and I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at ProsperWorks. And in today's session, 2 of our business development managers, Andrew Lobb and Jessica Slor, will discuss ways they coach their team to success using data from ProsperWorks. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them in the questions pane of your GoToWebinar control panel, and they will be addressed during the question and answer session in the last 10 minutes of the webinar. A recorded version of today's webinar will also be available after the broadcast. So let's turn it over to the team and they can begin their presentation.
All right, well, this is Andrew Lobb. I'm one of the business development managers here. The first thing we're going to look at today, guys, is how we view our reps' leads, not only from a rep perspective, but from the management perspective as well. What we've really tried to do here is create a repeatable process that every SDR team will follow. So by jumping into ProsperWorks, first place we're going to turn is to our leads section. And what we've done is we've utilized a lot of the features within ProsperWorks, such as customizing fields, custom activity types, customizing lead statuses, to build this funnel that all the leads will follow and the SDRs will work through. So the first thing is our custom lead statuses. What we've done, and showing on the screen, are 10 different statuses that tell us where the lead is in the funnel. So we have new, added to campaign, which means they're on an emailing campaign, and then they go into a calling status, which means the rep is actively reaching out, trying to get a hold of that lead. The next thing that we're going to talk about in the overview is our custom activity types. So when a rep gets a hold of a lead or is reaching out, they can log activities, and these can be customized to meet any needs. For us, we keep it very simple. We have notes, we have meetings, and then we have a no connection, which means no one picked up the phone or they spoke with a gatekeeper. And then we have a phone call, which means there was a valuable connection that went on, or excuse me, conversation. So looking at our list, guys, the first place where an SDR will go in the morning is directly into the filter, and they're going to select the new status. And this is going to show them all of the leads that have either been added to their profile overnight, their list, or they've prospected on their own, but basically there's no contact. So these ones, the first thing we want to do is add them to a campaign. So then if we go into that bucket, this list of leads has been emailed. They have not been called yet. So the SDRs are constantly going into the added to campaign, figuring out maybe the time zone, different attributes that determine that this lead should be called and chased down. So the majority of their day, they're going to spend in the calling engaged bucket. And this is going to show them all of the leads that they're chasing until they either convert them to an opportunity or put them in a cold status for any type of reason. So looking at the list here, guys, we have a lot of what we said customization done. So the first one, you'll notice everything says calling engaged in our status here. Now using some default fields, we can see how many times a lead was interacted with, as well as when was the last time that lead was contacted. And I'll turn it over to Jess for some coaching points here.
Hello all, I'm Jessica Slor. I'm the other business development manager here with Andrew Lobb. So I use this data in a few different ways to coach my reps. So first, on an individual level, we'll just use the calling engaged for this particular example, but one thing that I look at is their actual interactions here. So are they making enough contact? Are they emailing? Are they calling at the right time? And if I click into a particular lead, so see and go into their activity, I can actually see the calls that they've made, the emails that they've made, and make sure that they're on the overall right status. Okay. The other thing that I can do is actually look at team functionalities, right? So I can look not just on an individual level, but also on a team level. So let's say that I just want to look at my outbound team. There we go. Perfect. So So these leads are getting shown just by my outbound team themselves. So let's say that I just want to coach to them particularly. I can take a look at the team and not just the individual.
Great.
So I'm going to turn it back over to Andrew here. You'll hear from me in a bit.
Awesome, guys. The next thing that we're going to look at is we've made a process for these SDRs to follow. We want to actually make sure they're making the calls, they're doing the activity. So what we were going to utilize is the activity report in the reporting suite of ProsperWorks. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up for us real quick here, guys. So what we've done are those custom activity types we were talking about, the phone call versus the non-connection, the meeting, the notes. We can look at that from a 30,000-foot view and say, okay, how many phone calls or how many no connects, how many meetings did each rep set? Using this report, like Jess mentioned, we can look at things by teams, outbound versus inbound, territories, SMBs versus enterprise reps, and we can see all of their names come up here on the left. We're going to be able to specify a date range and then also filter by the activities. And this is something that Jess uses on a daily basis to coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll come in and do is actually look at my team as a whole, right? So you can see here that they have blue and yellow. So blue is the phone calls that they've actually connected with, right? And the yellow is the one that they made calls, but no one's really picked up. So I'll definitely use this as a coaching mechanism. If you look at Casey here, she has a lot of calls that are no connects, and I want to figure out why, right? So it's another thing that pops into my head of, hey, I need to talk to Casey today about what she's calling, when she's calling, and making sure that I can help her with the connection. In general, let's say that you see a high connection rate, right? I want to make sure that those connections are turning into opportunities. And that's something we're going to talk about next. But overall, I can get an overarching view of what my team is doing and making sure that they're hitting their overall KPIs of their calls during the day. All right.
And guys, as Jess just mentioned, the main metric that we are focused on is the number of opportunities created. So when that lead is converted to the opportunity, and everything that we've talked about as far as building out the lead funnel process, working them, making sure that we're active, we're calling, we're setting meetings to eventually drive to that demo status, or excuse me, that opportunity created status. So a really great feature about ProsperWorks is our custom report builder. And this is an integration between ProsperWorks and Google Sheets. It allows us to pull information into a Google Sheet and then using some formulas create custom dashboards. And the nice thing is all of our information is pulled into the sheet. So any custom fields we create, anything that we have logged on that opportunity, that person, that company is going to be available to report on. So I'm going to give you guys a highlight here on the screen of just one of the dashboards for our inbound team. And the numbers that you see are the number of opportunities created by that rep on the given date. Now, using this functionality, we can easily see how many demos were booked or how many opportunities were created. And then, of course, how many are scheduled on a given day. Now, that's leveraging some custom fields that are filled out. And then, like I said, just using some formulas to create this report. And we can update it at any time just by hitting a simple sync button within Sheets. And Sheets will go ahead and grab that information from ProsperWorks.
Cool. Yeah, so as a manager, this is a gold mine for me because I can see one of the most important metrics that I coach to, which is the connection to conversion, right? So you saw before the amount of phone calls that they're making, the ones that connect and the ones that don't. So out of those connections, I'm able to see how many of those are actually converting into opportunities. So for example, if somebody has a really high connection rate, but a really low conversion, it means that they need some help with their language on that call, right? To make sure that they're pushing that demo forward and they're able to move that opportunity forward in the funnel. Now, let's say the opposite's true. Let's say they're not, let's say that they are converting a lot of opportunities and their connection rate is high. I also want to dive into that particular rep and see what they're doing so I can help replicate that process for some of the other reps on my team as well. So from this also, you're able to make some goals, right? So let's say that we have Kelsey here at the very top. Her connection rate is 33%. Connection to conversion is 16. I can round up with her in the morning and say, hey, Kels, good job, but let's get it up by another 10% and really set some goals around that for her to strive for and hold her accountable at the end of the day or the end of the week, whatever time frame that we have. Cool.
Great, guys. So now that we've gone through a little bit of the deeper dive reporting, I want to zoom out and focus on what's called our Sales Accelerator suite. And this is something that Jess and I check throughout the entire day, and it's really giving us a 30,000-foot view of what's going on throughout the entire SDR teams. So if I just minimize this here real quick, guys. So the first thing that I do is I go into my company dashboard. It's located right at the top through a drop-down, and I'm looking at the leads. So as you can see, I'm looking at the time period of this month and showing just all of the SDRs, inbound and outbound. And from a very quick view or quick glance, I can see how we're trending this month as far as converted opportunities versus the previous month. And just knowing the outcome of the previous month, if I'm way above it or way below it, it might give me indicators on how this month is going to pan out. So if we look here, it's going to tell you at any given date what that difference is. It's going to tell us the total number of leads converted. So how many opportunities am I creating? And then what is my conversion rate? And as I mentioned before, as we split it in teams, we can get as granular as we'd like to here. Mm-hmm. The next thing is lead by status. And this is really to promote the process we talked about right in the beginning of the webinar, using those custom lead statuses to move them through the funnel. So at any given time, we can come in and see, you know, how many are new, unqualified, and so forth. And I know this is something that Jess, you know, picks up on every day and uses it to coach based on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked a lot about getting granular with our reps, but something that also comes to mind for me is team meetings. I'm constantly looking for new ideas, new things to cover in our team meetings. So by taking a look at this lead by status, I can see where the majority of our leads are in the funnel, right? So in this particular case, let's say I want to figure out and hear about why they are in calling engaged. Right, so we have 938 opportunities in calling not engaged, excuse me. And we can talk about how we can convert some of those leads into calling engaged and really pan out a team meeting along those lines. We can also dive into the cold, radio silent, and cold and staying with current solution to make sure, right, that everybody is hitting those cadences and make sure that they're doing as many touch points as necessary before they put them in those buckets. So like Andrew said, it's just a really high-level view of where your team is at any given moment during the day.
Absolutely. And guys, ProsperWorks is here to help make these businesses more efficient and effective, including our own. And one thing that's really big for us is our outbound outreach. And we're getting leads from a ton of different sources. So it's really important to us to know which sources are performing so we can put more resources in that bucket. So going down, looking at a conversion by source, obviously there's a bunch in there, but we can basically filter out and say, okay, these are my top 5 performing sources, so I want to cut my bottom 5 and focus more resources towards it. And it's also going to show where are their conversions coming from. You know, are they coming from our inbound, our outbound, our SMB, whatever the case may be, we have the ability to break it up any way that's necessary. Mm-hmm. All right. And then, guys, moving along, the next kind of part of the Sales Accelerator suite that we use is definitely the leaderboards. Mm-hmm. And switching over to that view, what I am primarily focused on is looking at the SDR team as a whole, so all of the sales development reps. And then we're going to look at what their goal is for this month. So essentially how many opportunities we're looking for them to create and how they're tracking to this goal. So we can see what our cumulative goal is for the entire team, how many we've converted, what are remaining, so what's our delta, and then what's our achievement. And I know this is something that our reps look at on a daily basis as well.
Definitely. And as a manager, right, I come in every morning and think, where do I need to spend my time and where is my time going to be the most effective? And this really helps me do that. So if you take a look at the leaderboard here, right, go all the way down, I can see that some of the folks down here have converted less leads than the rest, right? These are the folks that I want to spend more time with to ensure that they can help contribute as a to the team and that overall goal, but also that they're hitting their individual goals. And it also is a really great starting point in a conversation and say, hey, you're scaling here at the moment. How can I help you get to this next point? And really make some actionable goals and get that needle moving faster. So again, it just gives you a very simple view into where each one of your reps are at any given time in the month, in the day, in the hour, etc.
Absolutely. And guys, just to kind of summarize everything that we went over, the first part and the first major focus of our team is to make sure everyone's following a precise and repeatable process. So that was utilizing those lead statuses and then making sure they're actually touching the leads. They're going out, they're calling them, they're setting meetings. So again, we can chop and slice that by those custom activity types. And then from a management perspective, we want to look at it on a per rep basis and then a per team basis. So we can utilize the ProsperWorks Sales Accelerator, we can utilize a ProsperWorks reporting suite, as well as those custom reports that we talked about. So I'm going to give everyone about a couple seconds here. I know we have a bunch of questions. We'll start to break those down here. Give me 1 second here, guys. So the first question, is there a template for the SDR dashboards? Well, the dashboards that I was talking about in the kind of overview here and the ones that are on the screen, those were custom built by ourselves, and they can be, or excuse me, you can build any type of dashboard you'd like. Now, this is preset in the sense that I don't have to update it with people typing in people's names every single day. It's a simple sync once the formulas are in place. From the Sales Accelerator suite, these are preset dashboards as far as the sales leaderboard. So what are those opportunities that are closing? And then from a leads perspective, how many leads are converted into opportunities? The next question, what's the difference in functionality between leads and opportunities? And at what point do you transition from a lead to an op? Leads, guys, are business that we would like to acquire, people that we're chasing down to either sell a service to, sell a product, whatever the case may be. I would say an opportunity is created or should be created when there's a serious business discussion or need, when we're introducing someone else, whether it's an outside sales rep, so the inside rep passes off to them, and now that rep wants to track it in a pipeline fashion. So if you look back on our website, Kyle, one of our account executives, did a demo last week about the pipelines and things like that. The opportunity would then fall into a pipeline that can be tracked at different points. So the next, can you break conversions by source, opportunity by revenue? So what we are looking at here, guys, from a leads perspective, when it comes to sources, are the conversions. So we're looking at kind of the first part of a two-part system here. The first part is we buy or we source, we prospect a bunch of leads from these sources, and we want to know which one is converting to an opportunity, not necessarily which ones are closing the most. That could be done and can be done in the section, and we would have a source. Give me 1 second here. Pipeline by source, and that's going to tell us which sources are actually bringing in the most revenue, and that revenue is close one. We are working on exporting activities. That was the next question that just came in. Currently, we cannot export activities, but that is something that the team here is actively working on. You can absolutely organize leads by company. So going into our leads section, guys, give me 1 second. You can always alphabetize by company. You can filter by company. The nice thing is, guys, with the custom fields, a lot of times we want to filter on maybe the location or a certain attribute of a company. For us, we like to focus on time zone to maximize our calling hours. So we have a custom field that's labeled time zone. Everything's put in, and I can simply say, you know, filter for just East Coast, or, you know, go in alphabetical order, and I'll just work down them. Now, whatever the case may be. Okay, so I have a question here for business-to-business companies. Can you create an opportunity with company names only? So the way that our system has worked, or excuse me, leads. So you can create leads with just the company name. The way the system's formatted is for a first name, last name, but you can simply just fill in the first name with the company name and track it that way. So another follow-up question is, if the target is initially a company and we haven't prospected to the point where we know which contact we're going to be working with, this happens quite often with our team here. We might be going after a contact that's not necessarily the right one, or we may just start off with a company, let's say, you know, Zoom Info. So we're going to go after those guys. What we would initially do is add just a placeholder account called Zoom Info. And then through prospecting, we might find the VP of sales or the sales manager. We want to add them in as leads because we're either going to be having email correspondence, phone calls, meetings with them. So I want to be able to track that on an individual basis. Okay. And then there was another question why you can't export activities directly from ProsperWorks. You can use the API to download them, absolutely. We do have our API white pages located on our website. They will become exportable though in the near future, guys. Okay, so I just got another follow-up question in regards to kind of the B2B sales with the company. So if you do have multiple leads that belong to the same company, right now, there's no way to directly group them together other than a tag or a relationship tag, excuse me. What we will be doing in the future is creating a relationship between them to group them. So right now, it would need to be done with a tag or a custom field. My recommendation is a tag.
And I think we're starting to slow down. One more. Oh, thank you. But if you guys do have any more follow-up questions, please send them to sales@prosperworks.com. And as I said earlier, we will be sending out a recorded version of today's webinar after the broadcast. I think that's it from our end. Thank you guys so much for attending, and thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.